Hey everyone, Nasty Dubs here. Before the video starts, I just want to ask everyone to go check out the links in the bio, and especially my SoundCloud and my Discord server link. Let's all join the Discord. I want to have an active Discord, an active community. Let's build something great. Enjoy the video, guys. Hello everyone, this is Nasty Dubs, and today I am bringing you guys another tutorial. This time it's on drum arrangement and how to get a clean mix down on your drums. Now, I got a lot of questions in my previous video that I made, and I did address a lot of those questions. I responded to a majority of them, I think. And so I think one of the questions that I saw that actually is something that I wanted to teach people, and please keep in mind, like, I'm not a pro at making music or anything. It's just a hobby. But it's how to get a clean drum mix down and drum arrangement. Now, when we look at drums, there's something that really push our track in dubstep. When we look at things like Riddim, they really push the track. Now, why is that, you may ask? It's because it picks up the pace of the track and it also keeps it going. You know, you don't want to sit there and listen to something that's the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. Especially nowadays. I like that stuff though. So, how we're going to improve this is we're going to look at our drums. So, we have our first drum pattern here, which I will play for you. It's a Riddim kick, cymatics hats, and a clap from Discord server. So, if we play our drums, now, here we have our rhythm kick. Nice and clean. And then we have our ride 1. And we have this ride, which are usually what I use as the placeholders. So these are my offbeats, and then when I bring in new hats or new drum pattern, I'll play them in every single beat. So like this. 1, 2, 3. You get what I mean? 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now these are hats. Our hats just kind of keep the pace. They're kind of quiet, kind of not. Can't really hear them. The only time you'll hear them is in another drum pattern. Now, when we look at my drums, what do I have on my kick? Sound goodizer. So it's going to boost the volume of those lows. It boosts the volume of anything. It's a compressor. It's a sound goodizer. It makes the sound goodizer. Okay. Now, we put Fruity Compressor. What I did was the drums preset. It just kind of compresses our drums, brings them up in the volume, and then I distorted my kick a little bit. If I took it off, sorry, hold on, CPU. Oh, hello, okay. Guess it's a little bit too much, but I'll just explain. So I distorted it a little bit. We're going to take that off now. And then we want to use our EQ. I put it on the kick. It was like right there and right there. But we put it on the kick. Love this. Love it. I love recording on a MacBook. Should just get it on my computer. Anyways, so this is basically what I do for my kick. For my hats and everything, I ran through that in my last tutorial. But basically, I put sound goodizer. It boosts the volume of my hats, especially when I want my tracks sounding loud. This brings up the drums. This is the first step. Make your drums loud. Now, when we look at this, same thing. What we're doing is we're EQing it. We're EQing the high and down, and then from there, we just go ahead and put our effector reverb on it. We don't want it too high. Sometimes you want to keep the wetness up. I like to turn it down on certain hats because sometimes it'll just drown out the high ends. We don't want to drown out high ends because then how are we going to EQ it out? And then it's the same for this. This is going to be our regular hat. I don't put EQ on it because I just don't. It's not loud enough for me to, especially if I'm trying to drown them out and keep them as little placeholders. If you listen very closely, you could hear them, but do we want to? Not exactly until we bring in a new drum pattern. Now, our next drum pattern, if the CPU stops dying. Jesus! Our next drum pattern is going to be drum pattern 4. Okay? Now, when we look at drum pattern 4, you notice a little bit of a change. And what is that change? It's in the hats. Now, what did we do? Basically, what we did was we made them triplets. So now, instead, you have it adds more of a flow, a pump to the track. And so how do we do this? Well, there's one way. There's actually 2 ways. So to do triplets, I always keep my thing in triplet mode. We do it in a triplet step. So just go to your snap. And so to change it, you're going to do it main. So if you want it to be just straight fourths, do it in your main. But triplet step, you want to do triplet step right here. You don't want to go down here and mess with that. You don't want to do the beats. You want the step. Now, when we look at it, we can do this one of 2 ways. We can make the hat 2 notes long. And no, this doesn't change the length. It's just a matter of spacing and timing. It's how it works out best for you. Now, we can do this 2 ways that I think are easiest. We can make them 2 long and leave a space for 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2, and that's our space. So when we look at it, and I go ahead and single out these hats, we go ahead and go like this. Or what we can do is we can change these all. Hold on, I'm going to be smart about this. Command, drag. Voila. Now, yes, these 2 are touched. Let's just ignore these. Well, we're not going to ignore these. I'll explain these later. But right now, so here's what we did. We moved them all 1, right? Does it change the sound of how it is? No. Why? Because it's a triplet step. Now, I like to do it this way most. Why? If you think about it, you're going 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Triplet. Triplet. Okay? So these are going to be our triplet notes. So we look at it, we go 1, 2, 3, and we want to leave 1 space in between these because that's going to be the that little space that separates our hats. If I were to combine these, I don't think I'm going to like the sound too much, and especially when I want it to sound good and legit. Now, these could be spaced out. And it sounds a lot better. I actually prefer this over what I had before. But it's too late to change the track. It's already a finished product, and I very much like how this track came out, which I will show with you, or share with you guys. I'll be putting a clip at the end of this video. It's going to be a YouTube exclusive clip of one of my tracks for all you guys that stick around for the rest of the video. Now, when we look at drum mix, now, we always want to have different patterns. So, this is one pattern. Now, what is this for, you may ask? This is so that we can create some type of transition. I like to have a transition into a new phrase in my song. So say this is phrase A, and then this, where we see all of this white down here, this is phrase B. Now, why is this phrase B? As you can see, I moved from pattern 3 to pattern 4. Why is that? Because we're picking up the pace of the song. And you guys will see what I mean at the end of this video with the clip. But what we're going to do is we're going to play this, right? So what I'm going to do for you guys, we're going to single out just the drums. Don't want to spoil anything yet. So we're going to go ahead, single these out. Listen. Now, what I just did was I created a transition from pattern A to come to pattern C. Now, this is still part of pattern A. Why? Because we have not yet transitioned to B. This is only introducing that there's going to be a new part in our track. Now, how did I make this pattern? This is pattern 7, so let's look at this. So, you'll see this in a lot of like underground rhythm tracks where they'll put a bunch of drums, bunch of claps. Now, this is probably one of my favorites that I've heard in many tracks. You just gotta look for them. One of my favorites that I heard it in is one of Draco's tracks. Draco made a remix of AD's Bankai with Seno, I believe, and probably one of my favorite underground tracks. I love AD as an artist. He's one of my inspirations, and as you may tell by a lot of my music, yes. So basically, he made a remix, and that's how I found out about Draco. I went around and looked at his music, and I found one of these drum patterns. Now, it did take me a minute to figure it out, but what did I rely on? My triplets. Okay, so I sat there and tapped my head. My triplets. Okay, so when we look at this drum pattern, what do we have? So this is our rhythm kick. We don't have it in the first 2 beats. When do we start it? In the 3rd. When do we end it? In the 4th. Now, we want to have 6 of these kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. But for you guys who I want to get in the right mind of triplets, we're going to do triplet space. Triplet space. Okay? 1, 2, 3 space. That is our triplet. And now, when we listen to this, what do we get? Now, how many claps do I have? Great question. If you slow it down and listen, I believe it's 4, and I am correct. So, what do? We take this, we do a space. Now, how did I make this exactly? Well, that's a great question. What I did was before I added any of these hats, I just looked at where I had my kicks. So you see I have them here, and it should highlight in gray, like this is a hat, this is a hat, or a ride. I believe it's the ride. It's all 3 of our symbols. So we look at it, and we want to make sure that the gray is there, okay? So we see the gray, right? So if I transitioned to that gray, with this clap, now we can layer it over. So we have, this is 1 kick, 2 kick, 3 kick, then we have 4, 5, and 6. Now, what did I do? I made sure that it was in my triplet pattern. So right here you can see this is all gray, right? So if I shorten that, it's all gray. But what did I rely on? My triplet. 1, 2, 3. Then we left the space, and then here's another kick, and then here's another kick, and this is the other kick, the other kick, the other kick, right? So what we're doing is we're covering the gray on the kicks. And what do we get? And it just works out perfect. Now, I know there's a lot of reverb and delay, but it all cancels out. It kind of cancels out. What it's doing is, when that bass is playing, it's just taking out some of like what you're hearing. So it's like excess that the bass is canceling out. So we have pattern 7, pattern 4, then we go back to pattern 3. I didn't switch or do a transition here, but what I did do was I used pattern 6 from our phrase A again. So I went from phrase A to phrase B to phrase A, and then we're transitioning back into phrase B. Now, what did I do for pattern 6? Great question. I did a simple underground rhythm pattern for drum variants. Here's what it is. Let's move this all to 3 bars so that it makes it easier for us to understand and learn, like I was explaining. And that's just a simple pattern, and it's just getting ready for a transition into phrase B again. And then I ended off the track with pattern 5. And so that's basically it. Those are my drums. That's what I do. Are these drums? No, these are just different patterns for my intro. Now, people ask how I get a clean drum mix. To be quite honest with you guys, I always do my drums first. I'll always test them out. So I'll grab my drums, I'll throw them in a track, and I'll just sit here and I'll listen to just on replay, and I'll go through all the effects. And I just sit there and I listen until I get it specced out. I get everything specced out the way I want. How I have my hats, my reverb, and that is how it has been since I started the track. So, when I start my track, I open up my drums, and this is what I first came up with. Now, after I finish my drums, I go and I make sure that I put on my bass. So, when I put on my bass, I go and listen to it. I don't care how repetitive it is. I just sit there and I go... So I did all my effects for my bass when I'm listening to that, but at the same time I'm altering my drums. So I finish the effects for the bass, and then I start altering the effects on the drums. Okay, so we sit there and we just listen, and then after that we start adding our pitch shifting. But before this, I want to make sure that I sidechain, correct? So what we're going to do is we're going to sidechain to our main bass and then our sub bass. Why do we sidechain to our sub bass? And why don't I sidechain the clap? Well, the clap's drive and power is coming from the kick that we layer under it. Okay, so we always, if we have a kick and we want to have some type of power behind a clap, I want to use a kick underneath that clap. And what's the point of layering it? It's for the genre of rhythm, basically, and to just give that clap more power. Why am I sidechaining this? Why don't I use this? Basically, what we're doing, if we turn this volume up, then all my effects from this channel are getting routed to my kick. So you hear how I have that space now? Those are all effects. And now, so that's why we basically don't touch those knobs. But when I go to this, we already see this arrow is pointing down, and especially for this one too, pointing down. What do? We put Fruity Limiter. Fruity Limiter is a great way to start your sidechain. I don't use anything else. I use it mainly because it's always routed to the drum, and whenever my drum is hitting, it's compressing the bass and sidechaining for me. So, say I wanted to slow this down so I can show you guys. So, we're going to watch how this sidechains. So now we pause it. I'm going to expand this really quick so we can see. Wait. Okay, perfect. So, basically, we sat here, we wait, we wait, we wait, we wait, we wait. Okay, I want to load this. When I get this loaded, I'll show you guys. So let's take a minute. So here it is. Now, our threshold, knee, and ratio. Threshold is this blue line right here. How far down you want the volume to come on the bass when the kick hits. Now, the knee is basically how far down you want this bass to cut every time. Okay, and the ratio is how much. Okay, so this knee is basically just that end line. The ratio is the curve. Okay, so when we touch all that, then what do we get? Sidechain. Yeah, that's how it works. So you see that blue there? That's all the volume that should be there without the sidechain, but isn't. So yeah, I hope that explains sidechain for you guys. It just helps clean up the mix a little bit, and yeah. But as my track progresses, I'm gonna edit everything on a basis. You know, we don't want to do it all at once. We want to do things one by one, and that's why I choose to do my drums first. Now, another thing that truly helps me is my EQ. EQ is amazing, and especially for your high end. Why? Because you're cutting out hats, highs, everything that you need. Hats are usually your high end, so that's why we cut this, because they can be too loud sometimes, and that's what happened with this track. Anyways, yeah, just start by, boosting the volume on these, going over here, adding all your effects, do your sidechain when you're listening to your bass, and most of all, don't forget, add what you need and use your triplets. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you stuck around long enough to hear this clip at the end of the track. You guys have a very, very, very excellent day.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide